Thank you, Marcus. I could feel myself taking flight during that song. Those words and the piano, Carl on the piano with Marcus, and the soaring. The soaring in this week certainly wanted to escape. I wanted the reality of what I was seeing not to be the reality of what I was experiencing as a citizen of the United States. We've had many, many dark days in this last year. We've had many dark days in our country's history. But I was not prepared for what I saw on TV. And my immediate reaction, besides the sadness and the grief, was fear for what was going to happen next, and also exhaustion. Exhaustion for one more thing we're going to add to our already overflowing plates of what we're all managing together. COVID and the economy and our own personal ideas of what should be happening, and the political divisions taken to this level has just been astronomical. And we will get into it. I want to talk about what we can do, but overarching all of that is Wednesday was Epiphany. Wednesday was the day in the Christian calendar that we celebrate the coming of the wise men. Now, Epiphany has many meanings, right? It can mean an awakening, a realization, a flash of insight. It can mean understanding coming to you. And in the scripture, Epiphany only happens in the Gospel of Matthew, and it foretells the coming of the wise men. And I thought, oh, really? We need that right now. We need some coming of the wise men and women for what we're doing and how we're doing it are not working. Period. This isn't working for me. It's not working for our country. It's not working for anyone. And I wondered, there used to be this idea that there was a consequence for your telling a falsehood, telling a lie. And in our current society, in our current setup of social media and politics, it seems that the people telling the lies don't suffer the consequences of them, that they only experience of consequence happens to be for society at large, that all of us are suffering because of the promulgation of falsehoods and are shrugging our shoulders and saying, what else are we going to do? How can we fight what's going on? It's just the way things are now. And I question that. As I sit in meditation and prayer, I'm not willing to accept that as the status quo, as just the reality of things. And I think we as a community, we as a people, we as citizens have to stand up and say, no, I want to stay in this space. I want to know and feel and breathe and speak my truth. I want to call out falsehoods with kindness and understanding and empathy, but to stop the culture of profiting from lies, profiting from delusion, profiting from manipulation, And to do that, we must be extremely vulnerable. As I loop back to the story of Epiphany, bear with me for a moment, because I think it has real spiritual meaning for us. The story of the wise men coming only happens in the Gospel of Matthew. And the Gospel of Matthew was written to the Jewish community of the time, 2,000 years ago. And the Jews of Palestine were waiting for the kingdom of David to be restored here on earth. That the coming Messiah, as foretold, was going to restore the kingdom of David, and the temple would once again rule for all people, all the Jewish people of Palestine. So, in the scriptures of David, we have the wise men showing up to offer gifts to the new king who is born. The new king who is going to restore the kingdom of David. And that's why he has to be in the lineage of David and why he has to be in Bethlehem. But in the story in Matthew, he's not in a stable. That only happens in Luke. He's actually living in his parents' home, and they lived in Bethlehem. And the wise men first stop at Herod to find out where this child would be. And Herod tells them, according to the scriptures, it will be in Bethlehem. And then the wise men go to Bethlehem to give their tribute, their honor, their gifts to the infant Jesus. They get a glimpse of wisdom, an understanding from the divine wisdom in a dream that they should not go back to Herod and tell him where they find the baby. So they flee another route. And Joseph gets also a glimpse of wisdom and comes to his senses and takes Mary and the baby, and they flee to Egypt. Herod, when he realizes that he's been thwarted, orders the execution of every child under 2. Can you imagine every child under 2 in the whole kingdom being executed? The pain, the turmoil. For the Messiah in the Jewish tradition was coming to restore the kingdom and take them away from the lying, cheating, murderous leader. And when we think we have it bad, we can look back in history and understand that this idea of lies and deception and falsehood for advantage is as old as the human race. And to transform it and to transcend it, we all have to know the history and step above it. Lift ourselves higher, listening to divine wisdom, exerting our power of power, releasing which no longer serves us, releasing that which no longer serves us. You know, I've been struggling with that all week as I've watched this, wanting something to be different, wanting and feeling the need for retribution or accountability and the pain of it all. And I realize in my own life, in my own family, there are things I won't say because I want to keep the peace. There are conversations I won't have with my siblings, with my father, my stepmother, because I don't want to rock the boat. And my choice not to do that is part of how we're all here. Here in this seemingly intractable, divided place. The gospel writer, whoever wrote the Gospel of Matthew, was waiting for the kingdom of heaven, of David, to be restored on earth in Palestine. And he wrote that gospel some 30 to 40 years after Jesus' crucifixion. And he wrote that gospel after the temple was destroyed by the Romans after the Maccabean revolt. The temple that they were going to restore the kingdom of David through was leveled to the ground. One of the reasons we celebrate Hanukkah. But that leveling of the hope shifted the gospel writers to write about Jesus coming to restore the kingdom of heaven, not restore an earthly kingdom. Well, we are human beings having a spiritual experience and a spiritual life here in the United States, which we call a country created under God, a spiritually based process, for whatever your definition of spirituality is. For me, it is something that is greater than ourselves. Something greater than ourselves. That's what spiritual means, not religious, but spiritual. I'm looking at something greater than I. So I have been reluctant to step forward and have difficult conversations to keep the peace in my family. But perhaps to have the difficult conversation with love in my heart is a way to take care of something greater than myself. The nation that has given me so much, that has allowed so many things. And to have the difficult conversations with my family, who I know have a golden heart, but believe some of the falsehoods being spread. And how can I interact with them without blaming, without judging, without condemning? There's a saying that I have used before. You'll hear it from me again today. You cannot change the mind of anyone who can feel your inner contempt. So when I have this conversation, which I'm committing to in my heart and mind right now, I know I have to commit to it in love. In love. And when I can do it with my family, then maybe I can do it elsewhere. Maybe I can step up and talk rather than to speaking to this group of people, but to speak to individuals about really what it is that we are all sharing, the collective truth and wisdom, and totally surrender my understanding, my heart to what it is that other people need. There is a growing distance between us, exacerbated by media, exacerbated by COVID, exacerbated by lies. We are not that different. But even with all our technology, especially maybe because of our technology, there is a gulf between the hearts and minds of people. We watched it in the Black Lives Matter movement. While it seems so easy to see now, I was blind to just a year ago and thought myself woke, right? So my journey is mirrored in everyone around me and my judgment of everyone around me. One of the powers we're going to look at today, too, is will. And it is the power to discern, to understand, and then to choose. How do we choose differently? How do each and every one of you find some way to be different. Because again, if nothing changes, nothing changes. This only changes if we do. If we take the time to change our behaviors, our choices, our actions, and bringing love to the situation doesn't mean that we're doormats. We get to stand up and say, no, this is not acceptable. I will not tolerate this anymore. And tell me more. Tell me why you believe that this step was necessary. And then I have to be willing to listen and to meet those thoughts with love and with strength. This is why it's going to take every power in our beings, every power that we possess as human beings having this spiritual experience, this spiritual beings having this human one, all of it, all come together and transformed to create this new way. And I am exhausted from having to deal with the constant pain of this last year. I'm with you on that. For those of you going, oi, oi. Again, it is nothing compared to what the Hebrews, the Jewish people, experienced in Roman times. It is nothing compared to what my African-American friends, family, loved ones have experienced in this country. It is nothing compared to what all people of color have experienced at the hands of the powerful and the elite for centuries. Opening my heart means opening to everything. Asking for wisdom. Asking to see things differently. So that as I change, so does the world around me. I have to surrender. Surrender to what could be and to what is. Because until I admit that this is where we are, I can't get out of it. This is where we are today. We are in a deeply divided country where we don't agree on the basic sets of facts. I have to surrender to that truth and seek wisdom, which leads us to our final power for this talk. We have two more, actually. Sorry, two more. But let's concentrate on wisdom for right now. For the wise men bring wisdom, and we are calling in divine wisdom right now. Wisdom is our ability to evaluate, discern, apply what we know. And the affirmation will go, divine wisdom guides my every thought, word, and action. And you call that out, affirm that truth with me now. Divine wisdom guides my every thought, word, and action. And as we let that resonate, I invite you to sit back and relax, to allow this music, there it goes, the music to come into your ears.